I never asked to live in a neighborhood like this. But life has a funny way of cornering you. A townhouse with decent rent, a little backyard patch, and a driveway that barely fit my compact car. That's what I settled for. The catch? $250 a month in HOA fees. Money that vanished into a black hole called landscaping and occasional snow removal. What it really meant was someone mowed the lawn on Tuesdays, and when winter hit, you'd better have your own shovel. Still, I could live with that. What I couldn't live with was the creeping sense that I wasn't actually living in my own home, but in some HOA fiefdom run by tyrants with too much time and too little power. It started with a flyer. I came out one morning to head to work, coffee still steaming in my travel mug, and there it was, a neon yellow slip fluttering under my wiper blade. Bold block letters screamed at me. No overnight parking. Vehicles will be reported. At first I laughed. I knew the rules. The city allowed parking on our street overnight, so long as you weren't blocking driveways or hydrants. My neighbors and I parked there all the time. Nobody cared, least of all the police. Our street was practically invisible, a forgotten back road where nothing ever happened. But someone cared. Someone had printed these notices, cut them into neat rectangles, and crept out in the dark to stick them on windshields like a cowardly phantom. I crumpled the flyer and tossed it onto the passenger seat. "Nice try, HOA Karen," I muttered. The next morning, my neighbor Bethany was already outside when I left for work. She stood over her Honda Civic, hands on her hips, fury radiating off her like heat. "Look at this," she barked when she saw me. A fresh flyer flapped on her windshield, but that wasn't all. Someone had scraped the corner of her hood, leaving behind a jagged scar in the paint. They did this putting it on. I know they did. And look, no name, no number, nothing. She shoved the flyer at me like it was evidence from a crime scene. The damage wasn't catastrophic, but in the right light, the silver gash on her navy paint gleamed like an insult. "They think they can just sneak around and get away with it," Bethany spat. "Cowards. Every one of them." That word hit me hard. Cowards. That's exactly what it felt like. Whoever was doing this didn't have the guts to knock on doors, didn't even sign their name. Just threats in block letters and damage left behind. Something in me snapped. I began to watch. Every night after dinner, I'd slip out and sit by my upstairs window overlooking the street. The lights were dim, the air heavy with crickets and the occasional hum of a distant highway. Nothing happened for hours, until my eyelids sagged and I drifted to bed. 3 nights passed like this. Nothing but shadows. Then, on the 4th night, I saw movement. A figure, hunched and small, scuttled along the curb with a stack of papers in hand. They stopped at each car, pressed something against the glass, and moved on. I froze. My pulse hammered in my ears. It was her, HOA Karen herself. I didn't know her real name, but I'd seen her plenty. Short, wiry, perpetually angry, the kind of woman who weaponized neighborhood Facebook groups like a rifle. And here she was, in the flesh, plastering her anonymous warnings on our cars like she owned the damn street. I grabbed my phone and filmed through the blinds. Grainy footage, but clear enough. Her face, her papers, her midnight crusade. The next morning, my car had another notice, this time glued with some sticky residue that left marks on the glass. My blood boiled. That night, I decided I wouldn't just film. I'd confront. I waited until just past midnight. The street was still, silent, a stage set for confrontation. When she appeared, shuffling, muttering, papers in hand, I slipped out my front door. "Hey!" My voice cracked the silence like a whip. She froze mid-step, eyes wide. For a moment, she looked like a deer caught in headlights. "What do you think you're doing?" I demanded, striding toward her. She straightened, chin jutting out, but her voice wavered. "These cars are violating HOA rules." "No, they're not. The city owns this street. You have no authority here." Her jaw tightened. "If we don't enforce standards, this place will look like a ghetto. I'm protecting property values." I laughed, sharp and humorless. "By damaging cars? By sneaking around at night with anonymous flyers?" She flinched but didn't admit it. Instead, she hissed, "You don't understand. People like you ruin neighborhoods. If nobody steps up, everything falls apart." For a moment, I saw something behind her eyes, desperation, maybe even fear. But then she turned, storming off into the shadows before I could grab another word. The next day, things escalated. Bethany knocked on my door, face pale. She'd gotten a letter. An official one this time, with the HOA's letterhead, accusing her of willful disregard for community guidelines and threatening fines. "They know it was me who posted on Facebook about the damage," she whispered. "They're coming after me now." I clenched my fists. This wasn't just petty anymore. It was war. We called the city's code enforcement office. The man on the line chuckled when I explained. "They can't regulate public parking. If they're issuing fines, that's overreach. Keep everything documented." So we did. Photos, videos, letters, timestamps. I even set up a motion camera in my window, catching every late-night patrol. 2 weeks later, the storm broke. At the monthly HOA meeting, the room was packed. For once, people actually showed up. Furious homeowners waving flyers, pointing to scratched cars, demanding answers. At the front sat the board, stiff and silent. And in the middle, Karen. I stood when the floor opened for comments. My heart raced, but my voice carried. "I want to know who authorized these notices," I said, holding up one of the garish yellow slips. "Because last I checked, this street belongs to the city, not this board." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Someone shouted, "Yeah! And who's paying for the damage?" Karen's face reddened. She started to speak, but I cut her off. "Before you answer, maybe the board should see this." I pulled out my phone and played the video. Grainy, yes, but unmistakable. There she was, prowling the street, plastering cars. Gasps filled the room. The board chair turned to her, eyes blazing. "Did you do this?" Karen stammered. I was acting in the community's best interest." "Without authorization?" The room erupted. People shouted over one another, waving their own evidence, their own damaged photos. Karen shrank into her chair, her little empire collapsing around her. For the first time, the board actually listened. They promised a review, demanded she step down from her self-appointed parking patrol, and ordered reimbursement for damages. It wasn't total victory, but it was enough. That night, I walked out to my car and looked at the empty street. No flyers, no shadows, no self-appointed vigilante with a stack of paper. Just silence, heavy and clean. I leaned against the hood, breathing in the cool night air. Life in this townhouse neighborhood wasn't perfect. The HOA still bled us dry every month. Still obsessed over lawns and paint colors. But at least now, one tyrant had been unmasked. And maybe, just maybe, we'd learned something. That when cowards hide in the dark, sometimes all it takes is one voice in the open to drag them into the light.